Welcome to the 5% podcast. We have conversations on this podcast about individuals who are a part of or on their way to being a part of the top 5% of individuals who dare to dream big and pursue their goals relentlessly. Today's 5% topic is about a professor at a local college here in the Toronto area, and his name is Sheldon Leiba. He's going to share his journey, how he's been able to forge his path through various business industries, and he's also a good friend of mine, so I'm so excited to hear his story from his perspective so that he can help motivate and inspire many of you on your journeys. So let's welcome Sheldon Leiba to our podcast today. So, Sheldon, welcome to the 5% podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. I mean, mostly because I've known you for too long. Let's not tell them completely. It's actually back in, what
85. I was 13.
Oh my
gosh! first day of school, grade 9. You were probably one of the first friends I made.
Oh my
Because you just came up and said, "Hi, who are you?" And I said, "I'm Sheldon." And we ended up having a class together. We sat together for math.
Unbelievable.
And then we've been friends for decades since.
Yeah.
not to divulge our ages.
No, but I mean, you remember that so clearly. I mean, I definitely remember all of our math classes almost, because we were definitely challenging students. Mostly yapping, right? Because we got along really well.
I went to that school and I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So that's why it was memorable for me that you came up first day and introduced yourself.
Yeah.
And then eventually you introduced me to a lot of other people along the way, because you knew a lot of people.
Yes. And I haven't changed. I'm still the same talker, and I still love meeting people. So, I mean, I think that's why this podcast makes sense for me, right? I love meeting people, sharing stories, and so today it's about sharing your story, and it doesn't have to go root back right to grade 9 math or grade 9 high school, but I do think that it's important for us to share that. So in terms of your bio, though, your story, before we get into the story, let's share a little bit about who you are. Tell us a little bit about Sheldon.
Great. Well, thank you for having me, Andrew. It's always nice to see you.
Yes.
Friends for over 30 years, as we just mentioned, and I'm so proud.
But we only look like 30 years old.
Yeah, and of course I've known you personally, but I'm so proud of what you've done professionally, so congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Interviews with me today.
It's absolutely all about the spotlights on Sheldon.
Yeah, so currently I'm a professor in the
Yes.
business degree program at Humber for about 8 years.
Wow.
Never aspired to be a teacher or to be a professor. This is just the path that my career took me in.
And I love that. I love that.
I love the job primarily because I'm able to give back. I had a lot of people that serve as mentors, let's say role models throughout my career that allowed me to get to where I am, which is relatively successful. I feel very accomplished with what I've done in my life.
Absolutely. I'm proud of the things that you've accomplished.
And I'm probably heading towards the last 10, 15 years of my career. And this is the way I want to end, is to give back, to helping to nurture, develop the next generation of leaders in our community.
Yeah, I totally love that about you. And I love that, you're getting to do that, because I can see that you're passionate about it and that it's bringing joy to you, right? And to definitely to the people that you're working with. So, but you say the people that inspired and motivated you. Who are some of those individuals? Like in my mind, I was envisioning some of them back in high school, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. There's probably 2 or 3 I'm gonna say key pivotal people in my life, and includes my mother, who raised us 3 kids as a single West Indian mom, low income family, but she instilled in us a strong work ethic, commitment to our academics and to do well in school. And
you did that well too, not just for her, but for you, right? That working hard at school.
That's right, and very strong values.
Yes.
That we live in a society where not everything is handed to us. We got to work hard. We got to build relationships, be good people, be giving, be generous, believing in the rule of kind of reciprocity. Absolutely. As you put out positive energy and do good things in the world, things will come back to you.
Truly, truly. I believe it for sure.
Yeah, so first and foremost, my mom.
Yes, and I can, every time you say, I remember your mom, I think of her back in those days in school, but I've seen you guys over the years. You do so much with your mom as part of your social life as well, right?
Yeah, so, my mom, she's about 4'11", a tiny woman.
But powerful.
But very strong and powerful.
Yeah, she's very powerful.
She still has the energy of like an 18-year-old.
Amazing, yes.
While she was raising 3 kids on her own, she was working and still pursuing her studies. One of the proudest experiences I've had in my life was going to my mom's university graduation when I was 17 years old.
Wow, I didn't know that.
She spent about 10 years raising us, working, and doing night school at Ryerson. Wow. To finish her degree.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, I'm so proud of her. I didn't even know that. That's great.
Yeah.
But, your story is so similar to, I find a lot of Caribbean moms and women who are just the powerhouses of their households, and they become father, mother, motivator and inspire. I love that.
Yeah.
And she owned a home too, during this time?
Correct. And I should add to, and a lot of people don't know this, is that she actually had cancer at the age of 30.
Wow.
I was born in Canada. My family comes from Trinidad.
Yes.
And we had actually moved to Trinidad. I lived in Trinidad for a few years as a child. Mm-hmm. But my mom got cancer when we were in Trinidad, living there. And so she came back to Canada. And at that time, I was about 5-6 years old. And we were told, this was back in the 70s, we were told that people with cancer don't live more than 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
So our family was preparing for us
that's so
to lose our mom.
Yeah.
And she's turning 78 this year.
Oh, God bless. That is amazing. And she doesn't look like she's ever suffered any sort of major illnesses, because I see her as still, like you said, a young person. She's so active and involved. And now she's retired too.
She's retired. Yeah. And she's got a home in Trinidad. She spends her winters there. But what that instilled in me, in addition to the things I've shared already, is to not take life for granted. To make the most of every day. You will know that, I've lost my father, I've lost my brother, who you knew very well because he went to high school with us.
Yes.
So it really has changed the perspective on how I see life. Like, I always never take life for granted. But now more than ever, really embracing the people that I engage with, the opportunities that I have, and recognizing that we're not going to be here forever. So what, at the end of the day, is going to be our impact in making this world a better place because of our being here.
I think I can't. It was so painful to know that I remember when your father passed, and then I couldn't believe that, and I didn't know at the time that Sean was ill, but it was really sad to lose Sean as well. So young. Because
he was only 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
So for me, this is the person that I'm the most biologically related to in the world. And you could flip a coin. Is it him or me? Like, who's going to end up being in this position? He's buried not even a kilometer away from where we're recording this morning.
Yes. Oh,
so when I go there and to visit his gravesite, it reminds me, where we came from, the type of values we had, the impact in life. But at the end of the day,
he made a big impact in the lives of his children too, and as well as you, naturally, right, and your family in general. But honestly, I think what I want to know, Sheldon, because you've suffered a lot of loss, because even Sean had lost his wife, or the children, mother of his children. Like, what could you say in terms of how has that influenced? I know that you're saying that it's taught you to be, see how precious life is, but what else do you think how else has it impacted your life?
Well, there's a loss of life that creates challenges, it creates disappointment, creates sadness, but we experience loss in many different ways. Some people, they lose relationships, they lose marriages, you lose jobs. Right? So loss is something, for me, I feel like losing my father when my mom separated when we were young. Although he was still alive, he wasn't physically present because he was living in Trinidad and we were living in Canada.
That's right.
So I experienced loss from a very young age in many different ways. which I didn't have the tools and strategies to be able to effectively cope and manage.
Mm-hmm.
And the result of that is you do have anger, you
Yes.
do have resentment,
Mm-hmm.
you do have a lot of sadness, a lot of things that work against you being successful.
I feel, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I do feel that some of those challenges, those difficulties actually motivated and pushed me to pursue even harder and more the things that I wanted for me and my family.
And that's a great point, because those types of experiences can actually push you in two different directions.
Exactly.
One is it can bring you down forever,
Thank you.
which I've seen happen to people.
Mm-hmm.
They're never
Yes.
able to overcome these things.
Yes, I agree.
And others, it could be an inspiration to motivate them.
Yes, yes.
To
It could
be
affect,
strong, to be resilient,
yes,
to push forward, to be optimistic,
yes.
to know that you have control over making your life better.
That's right.
Once you have the opportunity to
I
make
chose
those choices.
option B.
That's right. That's right. And so did I.
I chose
So did I.
option B.
That's right.
And I could say too that even amongst my siblings, like my sister and I felt like we dealt with it very differently, right? Those loss, the difficulties and challenges. And I feel that from watching your life that you've chosen, even though you may not have been taught, or you maybe never even got the therapy or the sessions that you needed to sort of help you gain the skill set and strategies, I feel like you figured it out because you are successful today. And let's get back to that too. In terms of careers, I mean, I don't think you stayed, you now you're saying 8 years as a professor, but what did you do before? Like what other businesses or what other careers have you felt brought you to this, or what have you done?
So I feel like I've had a pretty interesting career path.
Mm-hmm.
I went to university, did my master's. It was always...
And did you stay locally too?
York University for undergrad, which we attended together.
Yes.
And then I did my master's at Queen's University, a master's in public administration. So I was away for a couple of years in Kingston doing that.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated from school, we were in the middle of a recession. This was like the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And there were job freezes everywhere. And I wanted to get into government.
Yes.
That's what I had studied to do. So without having any experience in government, really not having much of a professional network at all,
yes,
I couldn't find a job for about 7 months after graduating.
Yeah.
And graduated with a $27,000
debt.
student loan, because there was no mommy or daddy that put away any money for my school. I paid for my school entirely by myself through the part-time jobs that I had.
I know that.
As well as coming out with a major debt. So
yes,
it was very disparaging that I couldn't find a job after working so hard to do well in school and graduating and couldn't finding a job. So what I ultimately did was to offer to volunteer at City Hall in Brampton. I wanted to work in local government. And I thought, okay, well, because I don't have any experience and couldn't find a job, maybe they'll accept me as a volunteer, which I did for about 5 months full time, going in Monday to Friday, dressing up in suit and tie.
You have to play the role, right?
I had to play the role. Yeah. I had a very menial job that they gave me, but I was inside the doors of City Hall, building some experience, getting some knowledge, and building those networks. One day I built up the courage to introduce myself to the mayor of Brampton. So I'd been there for quite a few months.
Yes.
I was trying to get around and introduce myself. And he was extremely receptive to meeting me and took a great interest. The fact that I grew up in Brampton, played sports, I played hockey and soccer at high levels.
Yes.
And the fact that I was really motivated to want to work in government.
Yes.
So to make a long story short, within about 2 months, he actually hired me as his executive assistant. He had a resignation.
Awesome.
And hired me. And so my first job coming out of school was being the executive assistant, the right-hand person to the mayor of Brampton, which was, I think, the 10th largest city in Canada.
Absolutely.
A job that I would have aspired to want to have maybe 10 years later down the road.
After.
Here I had it at like 26 years old.
That's phenomenal.
And so when
These
you ask
are
about,
the stories that I love to hear.
Role models and mentors, the mayor of Brampton, Peter Robertson at that time, and still today, because we have a great relationship.
Nice.
He's about 84 years old and is still in Brampton. Has been an extremely pivotal person in my life.
Okay.
Because he took me under his wing. He wasn't just my boss. He was a friend. He was a mentor. And he was a father figure.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I learned a lot of just life lessons that he's imparted on me back then, but still today. Yeah.
That's awesome. And God bless he's still alive, because 84, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Yeah.
in terms of my career path,
Yeah.
from there I went on to work at the Brampton Board of Trade, became the CEO of the Brampton Board of Trade, which is the local business association, at the age of 31.
Wow.
So not only was I one of the kind of youngest heads of a board of trade or chamber of commerce, which is the business association in Brampton.
Yes.
At that time,
Yeah.
but I really was one of the only people of color in that position across the entire country.
I'm not shocked by that.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked by it, but
Yeah.
it seems to be like we already know that it wouldn't have been easy for you even to get the position that you got at the mayor's office. And I think you probably were, charting, the path for others, right?
That's right.
In these, I think that in general, Black men, Black women, you have to create the path and create the networking to get to the places that you want to be. So I'm proud
and this was a big deal because you're having a person of color in the mayor's office.
Yeah.
First of all, City Hall at that time didn't have a lot of color, period. Going into the Board of Trade Chamber of Commerce, which had very little color at the time, and here I was as the lead person of the organization.
Yeah.
So I saw this as great opportunities for me to demonstrate, not only as a young person, but a person of color, how I can excel in these arenas where typically young people of color didn't exist. And so that made me work even harder to prove myself, because there was always doubters, there was always people working against you, wanting to see you fail or not do well. We still, at that time and today, live in a society where there's prejudices.
Absolutely.
And I saw it and I felt it throughout my upbringing, throughout my entire career.
Yes.
And I saw it as an opportunity to motivate myself even more, to
that's all I was
showcase
thinking.
how successful I could be in these roles.
That's right.
And so eventually the Mississauga Board of Trade saw the work I was doing in Brampton.
Okay.
And came knocking on my door, and they pulled me away from Brampton and hired me in Mississauga.
And not just did you get hired into Mississauga, I think you also moved to Mississauga along.
Yes. One of the conditions, because Mayor Hazel McCallion was the mayor, very prominent mayor who's no longer with us, being the head of civic government in Mississauga, she said, if you're going to be the head of our business association, you need to live in Mississauga. It wasn't a big decision for me. That was an easy move.
Yes.
Loved, of course, being in Brampton. Loved being in Mississauga as well.
And we were sad to see you go from Brampton, but that's okay. We understand career moves makes sense. And I'm proud that you did these things for you, but you also charted the course for others to come and to see that path is now open and it's available, and also to prove a lot of people wrong, that
That's right.
that someone of your your age, your your background, your color, all of that, you can do it, right?
Yeah. So I did really well in Brampton. Despite I was young and maybe had a lot of people in the community that didn't want to see me succeed in that role, because when the position became available to hire a new CEO for the Brampton Board of Trade, there were a lot of other prominent people in the community
naturally
that were interested, applied, and interviewed for that role.
But you created, Sheldon, I don't think you were totally strategic in thinking that you were being strategic, but you went on just giving of your time, taking to learn, and I think that you set yourself up for success by doing that.
Yeah, so I share with you, some of my key values are around, having a strong work ethic, really working hard.
Thanks to Mom.
Yeah. The second one I would say is building a good network of people to surround yourself with.
Yes.
Which is something that it took me a while to really learn. We didn't learn that as going through school.
But you started that from early though, Sheldon, because one of the things that I was saying to myself and someone else last night was just that I wanted to be successful from I was young. So I made sure that I set the bar high when I was young. I wasn't fooling around.
Yeah.
I mean, I was having fun and I partied and I went out and did, had a great time. But I was making sure that drugs and, having children young and, just making foolish decisions early was not a part of what I did.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing it just for Mom or just for anyone to see. I was doing it largely for me. Yeah. Right?
So my aspirations to be successful wasn't to be, in the mayor's office and the CEO of the Brampton Board of Trade and the Mississauga Board of Trade. It was just to have financial stability.
Yes.
Because I always felt that growing up, just being dependent on this one little woman that had been sick with cancer to look after our livelihood was very risky.
Yes.
Right? So I knew that, I wanted to work hard to get to that position where I could just be financially secure.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happened that by working hard, building good connections, doing good things that gets recognized in the community by your peers, helps bring that success back to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. The universe works.
Yes. So I had a lot of people, in Brampton, in Mississauga, that supported me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was people from, diverse demographic communities,
Yes.
but even a lot of people from the mainstream, let's say Caucasian community, that were great champions and supporters of Sheldon Leiba. And we wanted to see him succeed in the mayor's office, at the Brampton Board of Trade, at the Mississauga Board of Trade. Mm-hmm. Every job I got, I had strong connections with that organization because of relationships that I had where I'd proven to be very competent and proficient as a leader. And it also what led me to eventually get to Humber College as a professor.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was thinking how you got there, and what drove you, what was it that initially made you think that is something that you wanted to pursue and do? Yeah,
I had about 15 years in the Board of Trade Chamber of Commerce industry, between the Brampton Board of Trade, Mississauga Board of Trade, as well as the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. I had a year. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce was the umbrella business association for the province.
Yes.
I wanted to make a change. I wanted to do something different. I felt I had accomplished all the things that I wanted to accomplish in the Board of Trade Chamber of Commerce industry.
Yes.
I left the Brampton Board of Trade on a high note. I left the Mississauga Board of Trade on a high note. Yeah. I had accomplished all the things that I wanted to accomplish. Yes. And I was just anxious to find something new and different. Had a lot of exposure to the post-secondary sector when I was with the business associations, because I had great relationships with Sheldon College, University of Toronto, Mississauga. Had built some really good connections and friendships with faculty at Humber College as well. Okay. So when I was looking to make a change, I reached out to some friends and said, what is involved in becoming a professor? I thought, okay, I need to have a PhD and have a lot of background in teaching. They said, no, actually, our program looks to have people who have a lot of good professional business experience to impart on the students and the curriculum that you're going to be teaching in school. They gave a lot of course, you had to have some academic credentials, but having that wealth of knowledge and experience working in industry,
I think that's great.
Was really important.
Yeah, I think
I see the value of that because when I was in university, I had professors that were career professors.
They had no experience teaching.
They had a PhD. They taught. Never worked a day. I don't say in the real world.
No, they did.
Businesses or industry.
So sometimes they couldn't speak to. They didn't have experiential learning, so they couldn't speak to it. They were speaking book knowledge.
And I find that's the value that's the most value that I give to my students.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I know the textbook. I know the content. I know how to teach it. But bringing it to life by tying it to the real life. Yeah. What's happened in the past, my experience, but also what's happening in the world today.
Yes.
And making it relevant to them.
Awesome. And I think that I think that supersedes sometimes book knowledge and academic, your academic background. Because myself included, made all kinds of career changes and choices, and I did not go into business having any business experience or business knowledge, but I was motivated and I had a desire of having my own business and doing my own thing, and I felt as a former school teacher I had a lot of great skills and strategies that I just brought to the business.
Yeah, what I think school does for us is it helps develop our aptitude to learn.
Yes.
Because we're pushed to learn a lot of things that are new, that are different, that are challenging. And once you've gone through that, then you can apply it anywhere, right? Yeah. I almost feel like any type of profession or industry or career that I would want to potentially go in, I could learn.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't discount knowledge, because I did find that university was absolutely instrumental in my life, and I've used it all through everything I've done. But I do find that mentorship and coaching and having those cheerleaders, so to speak, that you speak to, that can help continually support and guide. Right. And that was essential in a field that I had no knowledge of. Yeah.
So the third set of mentors that I think were pivotal in my life, there's probably another couple. The last one would be coaches, but teachers and professors that I had along the way who demonstrated a strong passion for their work.
Yes.
which was about helping to develop and nurture their students.
And not just to pour in, knowledge, but just,
That's right.
all the other things that you don't expect of teachers, but some of them give because of who they are.
And we have teachers that are just going through the motions. It's their job. It pays their bills.
Yes.
But you had those that you knew every day cared about you. And those were the ones that I worked harder for.
Yes.
Because I saw how much they felt that their success was tied to their students' success and their learning.
Yes.
So that's imparted on me in a very significant way in how I teach. When I'm in a classroom and there's 60 students there, I see them as 60 of my children.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
love that.
I am, given this responsibility to help them learn and to prepare them for a pathway of career, and I would even say personal success.
Yes.
Because what I teach in class isn't just about being successful in business and their careers, but being successful as good people.
Yeah.
And so I bring that to the classroom every day, and that's why I love the job that I do.
Awesome.
It's not the work that I'm doing at home, grading papers.
No, that's never fun.
Stuff. But when you put me in the classroom for 3 hours with a class, I'm on stage.
Yes.
And they're there to get value from me.
Yeah.
And I want them to go away feeling that their investment in school and being in my course more than pays for what they're spending to be there.
Yes.
Time and money.
That's awesome, Sheldon. I agree. I've been a teacher, so I understand that. And you're at a different level. You're, working with adults or young adults. I was definitely, with the much younger children, the foundational stuff, which it really can set children up for success or failure, depending on how you treat them as individuals. And I never just saw them as just a number or a student in my class, or, I looked at them as a person.
That's right.
And so, this is a good point for us to get to maybe what are some key, because you've kind of, given a few strategies along the way, but are there any, salient or key things that you feel that you lived by outside of some of what you said, or strategies that you might want to pass on to someone to say, hey, with these 3 things, you're bound to have success. You can't fail. Or even a book, because I found that there were because I know that we have many great coaches, mentors in our lives, and you've named some of them. And if you want to wrap with some of those as well, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I would say in terms of, I read a lot of textbooks. That's where I spend a lot of my reading.
Textbooks.
But going back early in my career, someone had recommended to me to read a book called The Celestine Prophecy. And it was a bestseller, I think, back in the mid 90s.
Okay.
And what I took away from that book is that everything in the world is connected. And so everybody that you meet for a purpose and a reason. So don't overlook the value of connecting with people as you meet people.
Yes.
It could be the receptionist that greets you when you walk into an office. You might not think that person's a very significant person because of the receptionist, and you're going there to meet the CEO or whatever. But that person is really important for some particular reason.
Yes.
The energy that we put out into the world, positive energy, comes back to us.
Yes.
Nothing happens by accident or coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. So this book was extremely instrumental, I think, in helping me to elevate, let's say, my spirituality. I wouldn't say I was ever really religious, although we grew up as Christians, Catholics. But I'm a very spiritual person, and I would say that book helped elevate my spirituality really early in my career. That I live by the learnings and the insights from that book ever since.
And celestial is in universe, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's what, when you said it, that's what I was thinking.
Like our entire world is energy.
Yes.
Right. Even though we're in this room, there's you, there's me, there's energy in both of us. There's energy that's happening between us as we interact. But just the air in this room has energy. And so we have auras around us. We the universe is all connected. Absolutely, right? I agree. I believe in higher powers as well. And so these are all things that help drive me to be a good person, to be caring, to to really value the relationships that I have and the connections I make with people, even if it seems trivial at the time.
Yes.
That those things can often come back some way in the future, which happened so many times to me, right? I can't tell you how many times relationships I made that seemed like minor, insignificant relationships.
Yes.
You and me meeting the first day of grade 9.
Yeah.
This lovely, young, spirited girl coming up saying, "Hi, I'm Andrea. Who are you?" Right?
Yes.
And look where we are, 35 years later. Right? And I have so many other examples like that.
Yes. I agree, Sheldon. I totally do. And I live by that concept of, like, no one is trivial. No moment is trivial. And I just don't know sometimes when and how and where it'll come back to me.
That's right.
And I've always, and I know that you too, have always tried to live good and be good.
I think it's really important, Sheldon, that one of the things that we want to share with people is not just how we are successful, all right, but along the journey, along the road, there's definitely challenges. I know I've experienced a lot of that. You have too, and you shared that as you opened in the early part of, sharing about who you are, the losses that you've had, and the different changes that you've made career-wise. As good as they've been, they come with challenges. So how do you deal with challenge? Like, what are some of the things that you do to help you?
Yeah, so as much as I've tried to navigate, being a good person, doing well in my career, being a good father, we don't necessarily have all the tools to be able to do it, to the extent that we'd like to be, to be happy, to feel fulfilled, to feel emotionally stable. So one of the things that I've relied on, and I swear by it, is using professional help.
Yes. And
I've had a psychotherapist that a number of them that I've worked with for quite a number of years. Okay. And for me, it's been an extremely valuable relationship. Probably one of the most important relationships I have, because you have a independent, impartial, third-party professional. It's not like your friends and your family trying to give you advice on everything in your life, but somebody who's studied, understanding people, psychology, behaviors, that can help give you some of those tools that you weren't able to develop yourself, to help you maybe see things differently than how you're seeing and experiencing things. So something that I would strongly encourage, and I know there's often stigmas around it, it supported me, and even me having that experience, a very positive experience working with a professional. I've shared that with so many people who've gone and done the same.
Awesome.
And have come back with positive feedback.
Yeah, I do think that there is a stigma, especially in our culture, especially with Black men, because I experienced it myself, right, where my first relationship didn't go so well, and it ended. And I didn't want it to just end. I wanted to see if we could work it out, or even just to see that we could part ways well. But I remember, he was so against getting therapy, and he felt as a Black man, he doesn't need someone telling him how to think or be or feel. But I just felt like it was a objective third party that could help me deal with challenges and not feel so bad about myself when so many other things in my life was going well. Right? So.
And for me, it's not only helped me get through challenges, but also maintaining, my own mental and emotional health.
And that's interesting too, Sheldon, that you say that, because I think that sometimes we feel that once we've reached a certain level and we feel that things are good again, that we don't need that professional individual.
It's kind of preventative too, right? How do we avoid getting into ruts again?
Yes. So I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I find that outside of professional help, I also use self-help books, and we're using this podcast to teach individuals.
Because not everybody has the resources, and that's an impediment for a lot of people to pay for this type of professional help. But with the internet and technology, there's a lot of resources that you can take your own initiative to go and learn.
Absolutely.
And look after your own self-help.
That's right. And I love that. There's so many ways to get it, through the church, through podcasts and stories, and, people sharing their experiences, books that you can read that that aren't just, telling you theories, but that they're actually telling you how individuals lived and how they achieved and what they did, the strategies that they use. So I do agree that's so crucial to continually work on ourselves. But, before we wrap, I'd love to address, you haven't spoken to your children as yet, and I know that that's been a significant part of your life, once you became a parent. So maybe you can...
Oh, absolutely. I always aspired to be a parent.
Yes.
And to be a good parent. I grew up in a family where I didn't have my father physically around. He wasn't there for kind of a lot of emotional, mental support, financial support.
Yes.
So I was highly motivated that once I became a father, because I knew I was going to become a father someday, that I wanted to be the best dad. And so despite having great titles like executive assistant to the mayor, CEO of this, professor of that, the most important title that I bear is daddy.
Yes.
And it's a role that I have taken very seriously.
As
Every
you should.
day, my focus, my energy is about my children. It's like the circle of life, right?
Yeah.
We go through life, the issues, the challenges, the ups and downs, a lot of lessons. But at the end of the day, we need to pass on to the next generation our learnings and our effort and our energy to help them be successful. So nothing gives me more pride in this world than my children.
Mm-hmm. And you have a boy and a girl, too, which I'm a little envious of. I only have girls. And you kind of had them in the order that sometimes most people want, boy, then girl, right? Yeah. Boy to help protect girl. But I only have girls, so it doesn't matter, boys or girls. I agree with you that being a parent is probably the most important role and the most important title that we hold. And like your students in your class that you want to impact, the most impact that I want to make is the one that is in the lives of my children. Yeah. And that they'll likely look to you, Sheldon, as someone that they could see as a mentor or a coach and beyond parent, maybe even a friend eventually, right? Mm-hmm. I find that today, I still have one younger daughter that I'm raising, but my two older daughters, they're like friends to me as well. Oh, yeah. I'm still their parent first and foremost, so I will always, give advice.
I have a relationship with my children where we talk every day. I feel like my son is like my mini-me. He's been my best friend.
He is your mini-me when I look at him, too.
From the day that he was born, and my daughter is my heart, right? And she's always checking in with me. Daddy, how's your day? And she's 19. She's not like a little girl. Daddy, how's your day? How are things? What's happening? And so we've got this great relationship that really I think every child should have with their dads. Dads, moms are critical, but I think dads play a really important role in a child's lives, and it's a role that I've taken very seriously.
I'm glad that you've got to share that with us too, because I do think like you said, there were so many titles, so many important roles that you played through your career, but the most important is this one of dad, and for me, it's mom. Right? Yeah. And I'm wondering if if you feel like I feel in terms of our children. Like, I mean, your children are young adults now. Would you feel that they would report to you or anyone that you've done a good job? Because that's kind of important to me too, that my kids feel like I've done good by them.
Yeah, it's not for me to judge how they feel about me. I think that evaluation will probably happen down the road, maybe long after I'm gone. Okay. When you reflect on your life.
I hope not. I hope that they'll share at some point. Yeah. Sometimes when I say that, Sheldon, I find that sometimes in school we give children opportunities to talk about who has inspired them, who motivated, or who are their parents in their lives, and sometimes they kind of give those indication well before. Hopefully, it's eulogy before, because you won't get to hear it.
Well, I'm not necessarily looking for the validation.
No, not
but I do see from how they behave, how I interact with them. Yeah, and sometimes in their words, like I get off of every call, every visit, every interaction with my children, saying both of us exchanging "I love yous." Okay. Which is something that so many parents don't say to their child, and children don't say to their parents.
That's right. Yeah. So I guess, and that's a good, to me, that's a good indicator that they're reciprocating what you kind of want, which is that they feel that you've
Yeah.
done well by them, that you've done good, and you've influenced them in ways that you didn't have. Like
Yeah.
you didn't have that father figure to provide,
Mm-hmm.
like a role model
Mm-hmm.
as to how to do it. You had to figure that out on your own, or look to what others were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I asked the question in that, you know, I sometimes it's not that we need validation as parents, but we just want to know that they
Yeah.
feel when they're out there
Yeah.
that they gained enough from
Yeah.
home and from
Yeah.
you as a father, because
Yeah.
I didn't have a father growing up either.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think from
Yeah.
watching my
Yeah.
daughters, they feel like dad has done
Yeah.
a good job.
Yeah.
We know that mom almost has no choice, because she's always left with that role and responsibility.
I don't want to totally devalue my dad, because my dad,
No, I'm
my
not.
dad always had I'm going to say, a presence in terms of always expressing his love, his pride for us. He just wasn't physically there. But the last 10 years of his life, he was close by. And we really had a very strong bond, and I didn't carry a lot of resentment from our upbringing. And the last 10 years of his life, like, I was talking to my dad almost every day, seeing him quite regularly.
Nice.
We had a tremendous bond.
That's awesome.
And it's a relationship that I value. It just didn't end up being the full relationship that I would have wanted as a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know, showing your children too that type of relationship with your dad also helps teach them skills, and I hope that they got to also build a relationship with him as
100%.
Yeah,
That's right.
because those are stuff. There's stuff in that relationship, those experiences, those moments together that you can't offer and fill in.
Yeah. He had a very strong presence in my children's lives.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so my kids endear their grandfather.
Awesome.
So I feel like he kind of made up.
That's good.
And the reality is, I don't know what he was experiencing when we were kids, and I need to kind of be understanding that he might have had his own issues and challenges, being a black man in Canada, feeling that he didn't fit in, and struggling with that. And we're talking about, like, you know, the 70s and 80s, where he just didn't feel comfortable being here.
Yes.
And so it may have been a disservice to him and to us had he been here and been miserable.
Yes. Yeah, no, for sure. There's, I mean, there's good in him not being there. It would have made life more challenging, and there's also bad in it too, in that it made your life difficult in other ways.
Yeah.
I sometimes, like when you talked about the celestial prophecy, and like honestly, it was probably the way it was meant to be.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I accept that too in my own life experiences, and I'm glad that you got to reciprocate near the end, last 10 years of his life, and his your children, his grandchildren got to experience some of what you may not have as a child. So anyhow, I think this is an excellent way to end with, you know, how important the role of a parent is, and I know that you talked about how important it is to give back to your students and to the community. And so I think just don't forget our children, right? Because they're a significant part of that. And our job is not done even when they become young adults, right? So thank you for joining us on the 5% podcast. And I'm so pleased that you were willing to share your story with us, Sheldon.
Thank you. Enjoy the opportunity. Awesome. It's always nice seeing you.
Hi, I'm Andrea Peart-Williams, and I am a podcaster, so hosting the 5% podcast, an educator who provides coaching, consulting, especially in the areas of business and real estate investing. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a boss mom, wife, and an entrepreneur for many years now, and I can help you build and amass wealth in real estate, in business. So if you're looking to scale up or grow, contact us and we can help you accomplish that.